Welcome to Good News Devos on U-Nite Radio. I'm Elaina.
And I'm Naomi.
Hey friends, have you ever had to do something that made you really nervous? Maybe you had to present something for your class at school. Or maybe you had to sing a solo at a choir performance. I bet Queen Esther was really nervous as she went to visit King Ahasuerus.
Do you remember why Esther might be nervous going to see the king? She hadn't been invited. Going to the king uninvited was against the law. She could die for breaking it. But this was the only way to save her people. So, after 3 days of praying and fasting, Esther went to visit the king.
If the king held out his golden scepter to her, that meant he wasn't angry with her for coming to visit and she would live. But if he didn't, Esther could be killed immediately. What would the king do?
The king was glad to see Esther and held out his golden scepter. Esther would live. Listen to what King Ahasuerus said. "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? It shall be given you, even to the half of my kingdom."
What do you think Queen Esther said? Well, instead of telling the king right away, she had a plan. She said, "I would like you and Haman to come to my banquet today." The king gladly agreed and sent for Haman.
At the banquet, King Ahasuerus asked Esther again what her wish was. He even promised her again that he would give her half of the kingdom if she wanted. But Esther invited him and Haman to another banquet the next night. She promised to tell him what her request was then.
Whoa, Esther was waiting for the perfect moment to tell the king. But what about Haman? How do you think being invited made him feel? He had no idea what Esther was going to ask about. He probably thought that she liked him as much as the king did. He was very proud that he had been invited to both of the banquets.
Haman was so excited to go home and brag to his wife and friends about his time with the king and queen. He thought he was better and more important than everyone else. Have you ever thought you were better or more important than others and put yourself first? The Bible calls that pride. Pride goes against God's way. Maybe pride makes you always want to be first in line, or maybe it's why you don't want anyone else to be the teacher's helper. Or maybe you brag about yourself because you want everyone to see how great you are.
Pride is also thinking that you know best. Maybe you don't listen to your mom or dad when they tell you to do something because you think they're wrong. Or maybe you don't listen to the pastor at church because you want to do whatever you want. You may even think you know better than God. But if you are a child of God, He wants you to stay humble instead of proud.
Philippians 2:3-4 says, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others." God wants you to be humble. This means seeing yourself and others the way He does. God sees everyone as precious and valuable. No person is better or worse than anyone else. When you are humble, you don't put your needs or wants first, but you look for ways to put others first.
Being humble instead of proud is hard. But if you are a child of God, He can help you be humble so that you can see yourself and others the way He does. Haman couldn't see himself or others the way God does because his heart was full of pride. Haman excitedly went home to brag about his night, but on his way, he saw Mordecai sitting by the gate, and Mordecai wouldn't bow down to him. Haman hated Mordecai. He couldn't wait to get rid of him.
At home, Haman bragged to his wife, Zeresh, and his friends about how great he was, and that he was the only other person invited to Queen Esther's banquet with the king. But then Haman got upset and said, "But all of this is meaningless as long as Mordecai the Jew still sits at the king's gate."
Seriously? Haman had so many great things in his life, but the fact that one person didn't bow down to him ruined everything. That's what pride does to you. When you think of yourself as better than everyone else, what others think of you matters way more than what God thinks of you.
But Zeresh and the rest of Haman's friends had a solution to Haman's problem. They told him to prepare gallows for Mordecai to be killed on so that everyone could see it. In fact, they said Haman shouldn't wait until the 13th day of the 12th month. Mordecai should be killed the next morning. Then, Haman could happily go to Queen Esther's second banquet without having to see Mordecai at the king's gate.
Haman loved this plan. He had the gallows made right away. But he needed the king's permission to kill Mordecai. So he went to see the king. Haman pridefully thought he was in control, but God was working. That night, King Ahasuerus couldn't sleep, so he had a servant come read him the royal records. These were books about all the important events that happened while he was king.
The servant brought the book and read aloud the record of when Mordecai saved the king's life from 2 guards who tried to kill him.
Whoa, that was a while ago. A lot has happened since then.
Definitely. The servant had 12 years worth of records he could read. But God guided this servant to read about this event. When the king heard the servant read about how Mordecai saved his life, he realized that something was missing. "Did we do anything to thank Mordecai for saving me?" the king asked. The servant checked and saw that nothing had been done.
Just then, Haman arrived. He had come for permission to kill Mordecai. The king was so glad to see Haman. Surely his second in command would know what to do for Mordecai. The king asked Haman, "What should be done for a man I want to honor?"
For a moment, Haman must have forgotten about killing Mordecai. Who else would the king want to honor but me, he thought. So Haman told the king his idea for a perfect celebration. He said, "Have the king's men put one of your royal robes and a crown on the man the king wants to honor. Let them lead the man through the streets on one of your royal horses and shout loudly, 'This is the man the king wants to honor.'"
Whoa, that would be a cool way to be honored. The king liked the idea too. So he told Haman to go quickly and do everything he had said for Mordecai. How do you think Haman felt when he had to give his dream parade to his worst enemy? Make the face you think Haman felt. I bet he was mad and embarrassed.
He had to honor the man he hated most in front of the whole city. But God was using this for a bigger purpose. God was allowing Mordecai to be honored and Haman to be humbled. And you know what, friends? If you are a child of God, God can give you the grace to be humble. Hey, wasn't grace one of our power words with Jenna and Noah a few weeks ago? If you haven't listened to that episode yet, check it out. If you did listen to it, do you remember what grace is? Tell us in your own words.
Grace is God giving you what you do not deserve, like the power to live God's way. None of us deserve God's power because we are all sinners. Pride comes naturally to all people because we are sinners. But it's God's work in your heart that gives you the ability to be humble. The Bible talks about that in James 4:6. It says, "But he gives more grace." Therefore, it says, "God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble."
Being humble is thinking of yourself and others the way God does. The next time you want to be proud, ask God to give you the grace to be humble. Maybe God will help you gladly let someone else go first in line, or be happy when someone else is the teacher's helper. Or maybe God will help you be humble so you can listen to your parents and trust that they're right. God will work in your heart and life to help you be humble and love others.
Haman didn't know God, so he didn't have God's grace to be humble. That's one of the reasons why honoring Mordecai was so embarrassing for him. But Haman had to obey the king's order, so he honored Mordecai just as he described. Hey friends, pretend to wave to Mordecai as he's being led on the king's horse through the streets. Now, can you shout, "This is the man the king wants to honor," on the count of 3? Ready? 1, 2, 3. This is the man the king wants to honor.
Haman must have been so mad. When he got home, he told his wife and friends about what happened, but this conversation went differently than the one before. Instead of comforting Haman and encouraging him to get revenge on Mordecai, they warned Haman that if Mordecai was one of God's people, Haman would have no power over him. Haman would be defeated.
As Haman and his wife were talking, there was a knock at the door. It was the king's servants. They had come to take Haman to the palace for Queen Esther's second banquet. Maybe Haman thought he was done being humbled. Maybe he thought he could still win. Could he?
You'll have to come back next time to find out. Can't wait!
If you want to watch our animated series on the story of Esther, check out U-Nite TV. U-Nite TV has the Esther series and many more free videos just for you. Check out the description for more. Bye!
Bye, friends!